In the complex world of human interactions, especially when it comes to competition, conflict, or adversarial relationships, understanding the psychology of others is crucial. One powerful, yet often overlooked approach to gaining an advantage is through the principles of Stoic philosophy, specifically its darker, more strategic applications. Stoicism, founded in ancient Greece, teaches the importance of self-control, rationality, and resilience in the face of adversity. However, when we delve into Dark Stoic Psychology, we begin to see how these same principles can be harnessed not just for personal growth, but as tools of psychological influence that can unnerve and destabilize even the most determined of enemies. Dark Stoic Psychology involves using the core tenets of Stoicism, such as emotional detachment, strategic patience, and mastery over fear, to subtly manipulate the environment around us, often with the goal of disrupting an adversary's confidence and sense of control. By remaining emotionally unshaken, showing an indifference to victory or defeat, and maintaining an unwavering focus on long-term goals, one can project an aura of calm resilience that unnerves others. These behaviors confuse and frustrate enemies who may rely on emotional reactions, fear, or uncertainty to manipulate or defeat you. In this article, we will explore 11 specific behaviors drawn from Dark Stoic Psychology that have the power to unsettle and destabilize your enemies. These strategies not only foster psychological dominance, but also ensure that you remain unshakable, no matter the external circumstances. Whether in business, personal relationships, or strategic conflicts, understanding and employing these behaviors can provide a significant edge, allowing you to maintain control and move closer to your long-term objectives, all while leaving your adversaries in a state of unease. 1. Emotional detachment, the unshakable calm. Imagine being in a heated argument, a high-pressure meeting, or an intense confrontation, and while everyone around you is emotionally charged, you remain completely calm, almost indifferent. That's the power of emotional detachment, one of the most unsettling behaviors to exhibit when you're up against an enemy. It's not about being cold or uncaring. Rather, it's the ability to maintain perfect control over your emotions, no matter the external chaos. Picture this. Your adversary is expecting a fiery reaction, perhaps a defense of your position, or a burst of anger in response to their insults or provocations. But instead, you stay silent, unfazed, and unperturbed. The more they try to provoke you, the more they realize that you're completely immune to their tactics. This unshakable calm does something extraordinary. It disorients your enemy. It leaves them questioning themselves. Why isn't this person reacting? Are they so confident that nothing phases them, or is there something else going on? This behavior can be incredibly unnerving because emotions are the currency of conflict. When you refuse to play the emotional game, it's like you're playing a different kind of chess, and your enemy has no idea how to counter your next move. This emotional control forces them to waste energy trying to figure out how to provoke you, all while you remain in the driver's seat. Your enemy may even start second-guessing their own emotional responses, which shifts the power dynamic in your favor. Now, think about how you could apply this in your own life, whether it's in work, personal relationships, or even social situations. Are you ready to practice emotional detachment and see how it changes the way people perceive you? Let me know in the comments. Have you ever experienced someone who just wouldn't react no matter how hard you tried? How did it make you feel? Or, if you've practiced emotional detachment, what impact did it have on your relationships and power dynamics? I'd love to hear your thoughts on this powerful tactic. 2. Silence in the face of aggression, the power of strategic quiet. There's a potent weapon in human interactions that many overlook: silence. Think about it. You're in a heated situation, perhaps with someone trying to undermine you or attack your character. What do most people do? They fire back, retaliate, or defend themselves. But what if instead you simply remain silent? Imagine how that would feel. Your opponent expects you to lash out, to justify yourself, or to escalate the tension. But instead, you give them nothing. Absolutely nothing. And that's exactly what makes silence so powerfully unsettling. Silence in the face of aggression can be incredibly disorienting. It's like a complete disruption in the rhythm of the conversation. When someone is being aggressive, they often do it because they want a reaction, a sign that they've gotten under your skin. By refusing to give them that reaction, you're denying them the emotional payoff they crave. This creates confusion and discomfort. They're forced to question, why isn't this person responding? Did I misread the situation? What am I missing here? This uncertainty eats away at their confidence. Silence isn't weakness. It's a subtle power move that can make your enemies second-guess their own actions. Instead of engaging in an emotional battle, you put them in a position where they don't know whether to continue their attack or back off. It's almost like playing psychological chess. While they're thinking one move ahead, you're thinking 5 moves ahead. By staying silent, you hold all the cards. The longer the silence, the more it unsettles them, because they realize that you have no need to prove yourself, and that is a psychological position of dominance. Now think about times when someone's tried to provoke you, maybe in the workplace, during a family argument, or even online. How would it change the situation if, instead of reacting, you simply remained silent? Would it throw them off? Would they be the ones scrambling for an explanation instead of you defending yourself? 3. Inconsistent behavior. The ultimate mind game. Have you ever faced someone whose actions seem unpredictable, like one moment they're your ally, and the next, they're a complete mystery? That's the unsettling power of inconsistent behavior. Imagine this. You're in a situation where your enemy expects you to follow a certain pattern or react in a particular way, but instead, you completely disrupt their expectations. One moment, you're calm and collected. The next, you're suddenly intense or distant. This unpredictability sends waves of confusion through your enemy's mind. They're left wondering, what's going on? Why are they acting like this? What's their next move? Inconsistent behavior works like a psychological puzzle that your enemy can't quite solve. They're used to understanding their opponent's patterns, predicting responses, and finding ways to manipulate the situation. But when you break the pattern, it shakes their confidence. They can't rely on the usual triggers. It's a mind game they can't quite win, and that uncertainty forces them to waste precious mental energy trying to anticipate your next move. They start second-guessing their strategy, which weakens their position and makes them feel vulnerable. This behavior isn't about being erratic or chaotic. It's about being deliberately unpredictable in a way that leaves your opponent off balance. You don't give them the satisfaction of knowing how you'll react, which prevents them from using their usual tactics to manipulate or control you. It's like being a chess player who moves their pieces in surprising, strategic ways that constantly keep the opponent on edge. The result? Your adversary is no longer focused on beating you, but on simply trying to understand you. And that shift in focus is a powerful psychological weapon. Now, think about a time when you were thrown off by someone's inconsistent actions. Maybe it was in a personal relationship, a business negotiation, or even a casual interaction. How did it make you feel? Were you able to predict their next move, or did it leave you scrambling? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever encountered someone whose unpredictable behavior left you uncertain and frustrated? Or maybe you've used inconsistency to your advantage. How did it change the situation? Let's dive into how this powerful tactic can completely disrupt the dynamics of any confrontation. Fourth, indifference to victory or defeat, the unstoppable force. Imagine being in the heat of a fierce competition or conflict. Your enemy has thrown everything they have at you, trying to break your resolve, desperate for you to react to their victory or defeat. But instead of crumbling under pressure or celebrating triumph, you remain completely indifferent. Whether you win or lose, it's all the same to you. You're unmoved, as though nothing in the external world can shake your internal peace. This is the power of indifference to victory or defeat, and it's one of the most unnerving traits to possess when dealing with adversaries. Your opponent expects victory to be a crushing blow to your spirit, or defeat to be a devastating blow to your ego. But when you show that neither outcome phases you, their emotional weapons lose all effectiveness. The moment you stop caring about the external validation of success or failure, you put yourself in a position of absolute control. Your enemy is left wondering, how can they remain so calm? What does victory even mean to them if they don't care? This uncertainty creates deep psychological dissonance in their mind, as their usual strategies, victory to assert dominance or defeat to create vulnerability, fall flat. This kind of detachment is powerful because it shifts the entire power dynamic. When your enemy can't get the emotional reaction they're hoping for, they feel disarmed. In a world where everyone craves recognition, acknowledgement, and validation, the indifference to these things makes you an enigma, an opponent who can't be swayed or manipulated by success or failure. It places you on a higher plane, one where you are driven by a deeper purpose, unaffected by the trivial battles that others obsess over. Think about a time when someone tried to break you by either gloating over their success or kicking you when you were down. How did it affect you? Now, imagine if you had been indifferent to both their victory and your defeat. How would that have changed the power dynamic? Let me know in the comments below. Have you ever encountered someone who seemed completely indifferent to their success or failure? How did that make you feel? Or have you used this tactic yourself to stay calm and unshaken in the face of both victory and defeat? Share your thoughts and experiences with me, and let's dive deeper into how this behavior can completely change the game. Mastery over fear, the fearless aura. What if I told you that your greatest weapon isn't your strength, your intellect, or even your strategy, but your ability to master fear? Imagine being in a high-stakes situation where everyone around you is visibly shaking, uncertain, and afraid of the potential consequences. Now, imagine you stand there completely unfazed. No fear, no anxiety, no hesitation. This is the power of mastering fear, and it's one of the most unnerving behaviors you can display in the face of an enemy. Fear is a primal force that can manipulate, paralyze, and control. Most people's decision-making is driven by fear, fear of failure, fear of loss, fear of the unknown. But when you have absolute control over your fear, your enemy is left questioning how you can be so calm in the midst of chaos. They may try to intimidate you, threaten you, or escalate the tension in hopes that you'll crumble under pressure. But no matter how hard they push, you remain like an immovable rock in the storm. The more they try to shake you, the more they realize they're wasting their time. Fear is your enemy's weapon, but it's completely ineffective against someone who has learned to stare fear in the face and remain unflinching. This calmness in the face of fear sends a powerful signal. You're not vulnerable to the same emotional triggers that others are. Your opponent's attempts to intimidate or unsettle you fall flat, leaving them with nothing to cling to. This isn't about being reckless or naive. It's about being prepared, mentally strong, and emotionally steady. Fear may be natural, but it doesn't have to control your actions or decisions. By mastering it, You remove one of the most potent weapons your enemies have at their disposal. Think about the last time you were afraid, maybe in a high-pressure meeting or during a challenging confrontation. What would have happened if you had been completely fearless, calm and collected? How would the situation have shifted if you had mastered your fear and projected that calm confidence instead of succumbing to anxiety? I want to hear from you. Have you ever faced a situation where fear could have taken over, but you managed to stay calm? How did it change the dynamic of that moment? Or, if you've been on the receiving end of someone's fearless presence, how did it make you feel? Let's talk about how mastering fear can completely alter the course of any conflict. 6. Subtle dominance. The quiet power play. Imagine walking into a room full of people, maybe a tense meeting, a social gathering, or a high-stakes negotiation, and without saying a word, you command attention. Not with loud gestures or forceful opinions, but with a quiet, unspoken aura of dominance. This is the power of subtle dominance. You don't need to raise your voice or puff out your chest to establish control. It's about the way you carry yourself, the calm confidence in your posture, and the energy you project. You may not be the loudest person in the room, but all eyes are on you because you possess a quiet authority that no one can ignore. Subtle dominance is all about presence, the ability to make others feel your power without overtly asserting it. It's not about bullying or manipulating. It's about quietly asserting your position and letting your actions, demeanor, and energy speak louder than words. When you walk into a room with this kind of presence, it sends a message. You are in control and you expect respect. This unnerves your enemies because they cannot read your intentions. They feel the shift in the room, but they can't pinpoint exactly why. It's like a psychological chess game. They don't know what your next move will be, but they sense it will be calculated, deliberate, and powerful. The beauty of this subtle dominance is that it doesn't provoke resistance. It doesn't create tension. It creates respect. People start deferring to you, not out of fear, but because they recognize your authority. It's an unspoken, invisible force that shifts the power dynamics without any outward confrontation. And the best part, your enemies can't fight against something they can't see or understand. Their discomfort arises from the fact that they can't control you or even predict how you'll respond. You've taken the reins without making a single aggressive move. Think about the times you've walked into a room and instantly felt the energy shift. Were there people there who commanded respect with their calmness, their posture, their presence? How did it make you feel? Now, think about how you can apply this subtle dominance to your own life, whether it's in the workplace, social settings, or in any situation where you want to establish power without making a scene. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever encountered someone whose presence alone shifted the entire energy of a room? Or maybe you've used subtle dominance to establish your own position. Share your experiences with me, and let's dive deeper into how this quiet yet powerful tactic can change the way others perceive and react to you. 7. Unpredictable timing. The disruptive force. Timing is everything in life. But what if you could master the art of unpredictable timing, catching your enemy off guard at just the right moment? Imagine you're engaged in a battle of words, a heated discussion, or even a high-stakes business negotiation. Everyone expects you to respond in a certain pattern, to react within the usual time frame. But instead, you do something completely unexpected. You respond at the exact moment that no one anticipates, disrupting the entire rhythm of the conversation or the situation. Unpredictable timing is one of the most psychologically disruptive behaviors you can use. By not following the usual flow, you throw your opponent off balance. When they think they have the conversation figured out, when they believe they know exactly how you'll react or respond, you suddenly break the pattern and change the course of the interaction. This forces them to question their assumptions, making them unsure of what to expect next. Your timing doesn't have to be extreme. Just a little shift from the norm is enough to unsettle your enemy, leaving them scrambling to regain control. Think about it. Have you ever been in a debate or conflict when you felt like everything was going according to plan for the other person, only for them to suddenly throw in a completely unexpected point or reaction? That moment of confusion, when your opponent is left wondering, what just happened, is a powerful psychological move. It disrupts their thinking, slows them down, and distracts them from their own strategy. When you have the ability to control the timing of your responses, you essentially control the pace of the entire interaction. This tactic works both in real-time conversations and long-term strategies. If you're always predictable, your enemy can easily anticipate your next move and prepare for it. But when you introduce unpredictability into your timing, whether it's pausing just before responding, taking a sudden turn in the discussion, or strategically delaying your reaction, you turn the game in your favor. I want to hear from you in the comments. Have you ever been thrown off by someone who responded or acted in an unpredictable way? Or maybe you've used unpredictable timing yourself to shift the direction of a conversation or conflict. How did it feel to see your enemy's strategy crumble when you disrupted their rhythm? Let's talk about how this game-changing tactic can make you an even more formidable force in any situation. 8. Strategic self-sufficiency, the silent strength. What if your greatest source of power didn't come from alliances, external support, or validation, but from your absolute self-sufficiency? Imagine facing an enemy who tries everything in their power to weaken you, exploit your weaknesses, or manipulate your emotions. But no matter what they throw at you, you stand completely independent, untouched, unshaken, and self-reliant. This is the silent strength of strategic self-sufficiency, and it's one of the most unnerving behaviors you can adopt when dealing with adversaries. When you're self-sufficient, your enemy can't break you because you don't rely on them or anyone else for validation, approval, or even survival. You don't need their support or their sympathy to thrive. You're entirely in control of your emotions, resources, and decisions, and that sends a powerful message: you're untouchable. This realization can unsettle your enemy like nothing else, because it forces them to confront the fact that no matter what they do, they have no power over you. They can't manipulate you into dependence. They can't create vulnerabilities by attacking your weaknesses, because you've already learned to stand alone with unwavering confidence. This behavior shows the world that you're not driven by the need for external resources, be it money, validation, approval, or social connection. Instead, you draw your strength from within. And this inner strength is not just mentally empowering. It also has a profound psychological effect on your enemies. The more self-sufficient you are, the more they realize that nothing they do will break you. This lack of dependence creates a deep sense of discomfort in your opponents, because they can no longer predict how you'll react, nor can they use your vulnerabilities against you. Think about it. Have you ever encountered someone who didn't seem to need anything from anyone? Their ability to stand alone, thrive independently, and remain unaffected by outside opinions or attacks must have left you feeling like you couldn't get to them, right? This is the kind of power you wield when you embrace strategic self-sufficiency. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever dealt with someone who exuded quiet self-sufficiency? How did it affect the way you interacted with them? Or have you found strength in becoming self-sufficient in your own life? Share your experiences in the comments below, and let's dive deeper into how being independent can turn you into an unshakable force, no matter the adversary. 9. Unyielding patience. The hidden weapon. Patience is often seen as a passive trait, But what if I told you that unyielding patience can be one of your most dangerous weapons in the psychological battle against your enemies? Picture this. You're in the midst of a confrontation, a tense situation where emotions are running high, and your enemy expects you to act, to react, to be shaken or provoked. But instead, you sit back, calm and composed, waiting for the right moment to strike. You don't rush, you don't flinch, and you don't give them the satisfaction of a quick reaction. You simply remain unyielding in your patience. This is the hidden weapon that can leave your enemies powerless and unsure. When you adopt unyielding patience, you're playing the long game, and it's a game your enemies are not prepared for. They expect you to buckle under pressure, to act impulsively, or to get frustrated. But when you refuse to be rushed, when you take your time, you throw them off balance. They don't know whether you're waiting for the right opportunity or whether you're simply indifferent to the outcome. Either way, they can't predict what you'll do next. This level of patience forces your opponent to make the first move, and it puts them in a position of vulnerability. Think about the power of watching someone else squirm while you remain steady. The longer you wait, the more uncertain they become. Their actions become hasty, erratic, and they're forced to make mistakes. Why? Because in their impatience, they're scrambling for control, something they no longer have. Your unyielding patience in that moment becomes your weapon, eroding their confidence and forcing them to act without a clear plan. They might try to provoke you, test your limits, but by holding your ground, you remain in control. Patience doesn't just make you resistant to their attacks. It shifts the power dynamic entirely. Now, think about a time when someone's impatience or haste led them to make a rash decision. Maybe it was in a negotiation, a heated argument, or even in business. On the other hand, have you ever been the one to use patience to your advantage? The feeling of knowing exactly when to act, when to let the moment unfold, is truly unmatched. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Have you ever used unyielding patience in a situation where others expected you to rush or react? How did it affect the outcome? Or if you've been on the receiving end of someone's patience, how did it make you feel? Drop your comments below, and let's discuss how the power of patience can completely shift the balance of any situation. 10. Controlled vulnerability, the ultimate psychological trap. Imagine this. You're in a confrontation. Your enemy is expecting you to be invulnerable, to always project strength and never show any signs of weakness. But instead of hiding behind a wall of defense, you reveal a carefully controlled vulnerability. Not too much, just enough to make your opponent think they've found an opening, an emotional crack in your armor. But here's the twist. This vulnerability is a trap. You've made them believe they have leverage, and now you're about to turn the tables. This is one of the most powerful, yet often underestimated psychological tactics in the art of war: controlled vulnerability. When you use controlled vulnerability, you show just enough of your human side to throw off your enemy's sense of control. They might think that they have the upper hand, that they've found your weak spot, and that you're open to manipulation. But the truth is, you've carefully chosen which vulnerability to reveal, and you know exactly how much to show. You've lured them into a false sense of security, and now they're exposed. This calculated move creates a psychological imbalance. Your enemy starts to question, are they really this weak? Or are they setting me up? The uncertainty they feel as they try to figure out whether you're genuinely vulnerable or whether it's a trap will paralyze them mentally, and they'll hesitate. Controlled vulnerability also works because it humanizes you in a way that makes your enemies uneasy. Most people are conditioned to avoid showing any kind of weakness, fearing it will lead to defeat. But when you use vulnerability as a strength, you break that pattern. You force your opponent into a position where they don't know if they should attack or retreat. Their internal conflict is a powerful psychological tool that works in your favor. They are now constantly second-guessing themselves, which leaves them open to mistakes, poor judgment, and loss of control. Think about a time when someone revealed just enough of themselves, whether through a small gesture, a word, or an emotional revelation, that made you wonder if they were actually showing weakness or if they were just manipulating the situation to their advantage. How did it make you feel? Did it shift your perception of them, or did it make you unsure of what to do next? I want to hear from you. Have you ever used controlled vulnerability in a situation where it worked to your advantage? Or have you ever fallen into the trap of thinking someone's vulnerability was a sign of weakness, only to find out it was part of their strategy? Share your experiences in the comments below, and let's dive deeper into how this powerful tactic can turn the tables in any confrontation. 11th, psychological isolation, the silent, strategic move. Imagine being in the middle of a tense negotiation, a heated argument, or even a battle of wills. Your enemy is surrounded by people. They feel confident and supported, perhaps even dominant, but suddenly, without saying a word, you isolate them psychologically. You don't have to physically remove them from the group. No, this is a far more subtle, insidious tactic. You simply make them feel alone, like they're standing in a crowd, but no one is really with them. Psychological isolation is the silent, invisible weapon that can leave your enemy feeling vulnerable, disconnected, and completely out of their depth. This strategy works by eroding their support base, even if it's only in their mind. When you subtly cut off their ability to rely on the validation, attention, or support of others, they begin to second-guess themselves. In a confrontation, we often look for reassurance from those around us. We draw strength from the presence of allies. But when you make your enemy feel like they're isolated, even in the middle of a crowd, they lose that external foundation. They begin to feel that their every move is under a microscope, with no one there to back them up, even if physically they're surrounded. What makes psychological isolation so powerful is that it works without any direct confrontation. You don't have to challenge their position openly. Instead, you subtly undermine their sense of security. Whether it's by disregarding their opinions, giving them the cold shoulder, or subtly steering others away from supporting them, you plant the seeds of doubt. Slowly, they begin to feel the pressure of isolation, even as they're surrounded. They start to question their worth, their decisions, and their power. The more isolated they feel, the more likely they are to make mistakes, lose composure, and falter under pressure. Now, think about a time when you felt like you were left out or unsupported, even when you were surrounded by people. Maybe in a group conversation or during a decision-making process. You felt like no one was on your side. How did that make you feel? Did it shake your confidence? That's exactly the power of psychological isolation. It creates doubt and weakness without a single word being spoken. Let me know in the comments. Have you ever felt isolated in a situation where you expected support? Or have you ever used psychological isolation to shift the dynamics of a conflict or negotiation? How did it change the way things played out? Share your experiences, and let's explore how this strategy can be the ultimate game changer in any high-stakes situation. Conclusion: the art of psychological mastery. In this journey through the 11 behaviors that unnerve your enemies, we've explored how the most powerful strategies are often the most subtle and calculated. Whether it's through the indifference to victory and defeat, mastery over fear, or strategic self-sufficiency, each of these behaviors provides you with the tools to stay in control, disrupt your enemy's confidence, and navigate any situation with unparalleled psychological strength. These tactics show that you don't need to be loud or aggressive to win. You just need to be smart, composed, and unpredictable. Mastering these behaviors isn't about manipulation or playing games. It's about understanding the psychological dynamics at play and using them to your advantage. It's about creating a mental fortress that no external force can break, and confidently knowing that you can outlast, outsmart, and outmaneuver anyone who crosses your path. The best part? These behaviors don't just apply to adversarial situations. Whether in personal relationships, business negotiations, or high-stress environments, they allow you to handle any challenge with grace, precision, and a quiet yet unshakable strength. By embracing them, you transform from a reactive individual into someone who can stay 3 steps ahead, regardless of the situation. But now, I want to hear from you. Which of these behaviors have you already applied in your life? Which ones do you feel could make the biggest difference for you moving forward? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and let's discuss how you can use these strategies to become an even more powerful, influential force in your own life. The path to mastering these psychological tactics starts now. Are you ready to take control?